You've been told to work on yourself, hit the gym, improve your game, but most guys doing all of that are still getting treated like an option. Today, I'm breaking down the 5 archetypes of the most attractive man ever written and what it takes to actually become more like him. We're going live, baby.
We'll do it live.
You're listening to the premier podcast for men who want to not only be better with women, but want to be better men in general. This is the Come On Man podcast. And here's your host,
Paul Bauer.
Paul Bauer.
Paul Bauer.
Paul Bauer.
Paul Bauer.
Paul Bauer.
Paul Bauer. He is a certified master life coach and NLP practitioner.
It's true. It's damn true. We're going to have fun for Frame Friday today, guys. Who doesn't like James Bond? If you guys are new to the channel, my name is Paul Bauer. I help men level up and get better with women. And the funny thing about doing that is it tends to make us better men in all areas of our lives. Now, Raith Deantoir was on the show last Friday, and after the episode, he sent me one of his newest books, Becoming the Operator. And I read it over the weekend, and I knew it belonged on a Frame Friday. What Raith did was he broke down the archetypes of Bond based on every actor who's ever played him. Well, the prominent actors that have played him, right? Because there was that one-off movie, the original Casino Royale from the 60s that was like a spoof on James Bond. Like, that doesn't count. But then he laid out exactly how to integrate all of the different archetypes into the best version of yourself, which he calls the operator. Okay. We're going through all 5 today, and somewhere in that list, you're going to see yourself. The one you default to has strengths, but he also has gaps, and those gaps are costing you. By the end of this, you'll know how to pull from the other 4 and start operating at a level most guys never reach. So don't tap out early. The part that applies to you most is probably coming up later. Let me drop a link. It's in the description too, the link to Raith's book. I've also got it pinned in the chat, but I'll drop a link to it in the chat too. Unfortunately, it's not available on audio. I did tell Raith that Amazon KDP does have a new feature where you can select, create an audiobook, and then Amazon has their own AI that will create an AI audiobook that actually, they sound pretty good. I listened to an audiobook by Vladimir Zealand called, I don't know. It was like a follow-up to his reality transurfing. And that one was done with AI, and it actually was pretty good. Like sometimes when you listen with AI, it's awful. It's god awful, right? But the ones that Amazon put out are actually pretty good. So I told him to try that out, because a lot of guys would rather listen to audiobooks than to sit down and read. I'm one of those guys. So I made a PowerPoint presentation, guys, because today's serious. Right? Today's serious. I made a PowerPoint presentation. So let's start with the recruit. Now, the way I put my presentation together, it's not in the order of the book. And Raith asked me, like what I thought of the book. I thought it was a great book, but I would have ordered these differently, because like he puts the recruit like three guys in, and to me that's the beginning level, like that's the beginning frame. And I was like, okay, but even if you were doing it in order of the James Bond actor, then Lazenby would still be number 2 at least, so to me, I thought his order was, it was out of order, but he might have had a method to his madness. I don't know. He hasn't followed up on me. He's probably pissed. He's like, fuck you, man. Oh, did I just cuss? It's not the 8-minute mark. Guys, send super chats. Oh, Wednesday's episode did get demonetized. It got demonetized, but I was able to appeal it and get it back. But just so you know, the one from 2 weeks ago, it was last Monday. It was chapter 4 of Keep Your Bish, right? And that was all on creating sexual or keeping sexual attraction going in the long term. That one's still demonetized, by the way. I don't just say that. It actually happens. Okay. So the recruit, that's where we're going to start with. George Lazenby, the way Raith described him was he was the recruit. Okay. So let's look at the traits of the recruit. So one of the cool things about a recruit is he's got raw ambition. You know, think of yourself the first time you got a job in the career that you're in, right? Your very first job in your career. Like you had a lot of ambition, a lot of drive, but you were green as hell. You didn't really know anything yet. Like you may have came out of school, but you know how like they teach you one thing at school, but like on the job, you actually do something completely different, right? So raw ambition, he wants to prove himself and he doesn't hide it. That energy drives him really hard. So the pro here, we're going to go through a pro and con of all these. The pro here is there's fuel for development. The hunger to be more than you currently are is what gets the work done in the early stages. Okay. But there's a con here for that raw ambition. Proving energy leaks desperation. If you're always trying to prove yourself to everybody, it's like you're validation seeking, right? You look desperate. Okay. So it telegraphs insecurity to people who are watching for it. And then those people will use that against you. Okay. So raw ambition by itself is good, but there's some problems with it. And that's what we're really going to go through today. The next trait of the recruit is emotional openness. Okay. He hasn't built armor yet. He connects genuinely, but also gets hurt genuinely and shows it. So the pro there is he can create authentic connections with that. There's something real about a man who hasn't been hardened into performance yet. Okay. Now, we all know the problem with being too emotionally open, especially around the women folk. Okay. So the con here is emotional openness without regulation is just pure exposure. It creates vulnerability that could be exploited by people who don't deserve that level of access. One might say women never truly earn that level of access. One might argue that. I would be one of those people that would argue that. But once you've been doing this stuff for a long time, because I often talk about like, you know, you can't be vulnerable with women. Don't be vulnerable with women, right? Like they'll use that stuff against you. They look at it as weakness and all that kind of stuff. There are ways that you can, like if you find yourself talking about your problems, you know, talking about your insecurities, if you can tack on a solution to the end of that, okay, turn it into a positive at the end, it's fine. It's okay to do that kind of stuff with women. The thing is that women just want to know that you have everything handled at the end of the day. They just want to know that like you've got life handled and they don't want to be your therapist or your mother. So if you talk to them about your vulnerabilities and you don't, you know, let them know at the end that you've got it all handled, like I got it all worked out, everything will be fine, don't worry about it, right? Then they'll start using that stuff against you, right? They'll start using that stuff against you. But the recruit hasn't learned that yet. The third trait of the recruit is identity under construction. So he's assembling who he is in real time. The foundation hasn't been poured yet, okay? So the pro is that he's still shapeable. He hasn't developed enough bad habits that it's too hard to turn around. Okay, a big challenge for guys that find their way to say my podcast usually is that I tend to attract guys who are like over 35, over 40, over 50, right? Like, look at all this, okay? Some 19-year-old young buck is like, what does that guy know about women, right? Like, he doesn't know nothing, right? Because young teenagers, they think they know everything already. So I tend to attract an older crowd. Well, the problem with older guys is that they've developed bad habits for decades, bad relationship habits for decades. And so when you try to tell them something different or something new, their cup's already full, right? Their cup's full. So you can't fill up that information. You know, it's like, yeah, it's just, you got to learn how to empty your cup a little bit and just realize, hey, maybe I don't know everything. Maybe there are some things I can change about myself, and empty your cup a little bit so that you can get filled up with new information, right? But a lot of guys, they think they know it all already, and so they don't want to empty their cup, right? So that's one of the pros of the recruit is that his cup's empty already. He's hungry for the information. He's thirsty for knowledge. He wants to learn everything. Okay. So he's still shapeable. He can take feedback and genuinely change, unlike a man whose identity is rigid and defended. Okay. So the con here, though, is that identity under construction means outside voices can fill the gaps. And without a strong self-concept, he gets shaped by who's ever the loudest in his ear, right? Who's ever the loudest in his life is going to shape him. And it might not be, he might not get shaped in the right direction. Now, you see this show up a lot in nice guy syndrome, because when you're young and impressionable growing up, the people around you are where you get your relationship advice from. They're programmed to be nice guys, you know, like your dad or your uncles. Like everyone's programmed to be nice guys. The movies you watch, the TV shows you watch, they all program us to be beta males. And so then we have all these guys that are young and impressionable that are raised to be nice guys. And then we have all the problems that we have in relationships, right? The next trait is overexertion. He tries too hard in too many directions because he isn't sure yet which effort actually matters. So the pro here is high output in the development stage. The grind phase requires volume. I was like this when I got into IT. You know, if you guys are new to the channel, I retired from IT last year. I used to be, I was a senior director of IT infrastructure for a company that shall not be named for a number of years. And that was my last job in IT. This is why, like, I'm only 25, but I have all this gray hair because of all that. But when I was young, or when I was younger and I was getting into IT, I was hungry, man. I was hungry. I would take on anything. I wanted to learn everything. And so there was nights when the first systems administrator job I had, like there was nights I would be up until 3 a.m. just working on stuff because I wanted to do a good job. And I was always wanting to stay busy. And most of the time though, it's because I didn't know what I was doing. And so I had to work harder at the job because I was still figuring it out and Googling stuff. And when I try something, it didn't work. And so I'd be working these crazy ass hours, right? And you end up with overexertion with that. That's what happens with guys in a new type of field or position. Okay. Well, that con is that overexertion without focus produces a scattered man, and activity isn't the same as effectiveness. I had a guy that was working for me before I retired. And when I retired, I wasn't doing IT infrastructure so much anymore. I was doing more DevOps management. And I had this guy who I brought on originally before our company got bought out. And I hired him to do IT infrastructure. And he was pretty good at that. You know, he was pretty good at IT infrastructure and systems administration. But the company that bought us out, they were a huge multi-billion-dollar conglomerate, international company. And so they had their own IT infrastructure team. So they didn't really need IT infrastructure guys. So we got moved into a DevOps role. And so I was in charge of DevOps, and this guy got moved into a DevOps role, which he had never done in like the 20 years that he's been working at IT. He's never done DevOps. And it's a whole other animal. It's a whole other tool set. You got to learn a lot of like coding and stuff like that. And I'm not going to try to make this episode all about nerd stuff, but the thing is that because he's in this new role, he was working his ass off. He was like burning the candle at both ends, trying to get stuff done. Things were breaking all the time, but he was constantly saying, look how hard I'm working. Look how hard I'm working. I'm like, yeah, but the reason why your work is so hard is because you don't know what you're doing. You're breaking more than you're helping. You know what I mean? Like it would be better if you took a step back and like studied some of this stuff and then came back and tried to do some of this work. You know, like we have other guys that can handle some of this stuff, you know. But that's what happens when you're like at the recruit frame. And you can end up in the recruit frame almost at any stage of your life if you think about it. You know, it just depends on what's going on. The last trait here is susceptibility to loss. Okay. When something meaningful is taken from him, whether it's a relationship, a job, or a reputation. He doesn't have the regulation infrastructure yet to absorb it cleanly. So the pro is that forces growth. Okay. Loss at this stage, if processed honestly, produces the most durable lessons a man can have. Okay. Like, it's funny. A lot of guys end up in the red pill space because of they get cheated on or they get dumped, right? Like that's a big avenue into the red pill space. That's why, whenever guys are complaining about the nature of women are always like, who hurt you, right? Who hurt you, bro? As if they've never been hurt. It's a dumb question to ask. It's also completely unoriginal at this point. But a lot of guys have been hurt, but a lot of guys have so much attachment to the relationship. They put so much identity into this relationship that when that relationship goes away, they feel broken, right? They get zeroed out. A lot of guys will unalive themselves at that point. We've got guys in Wolfpack that are going through, breakups and divorces and stuff like that. And some of them handle it better than others. Some of them just, they're at their lowest point. The best thing though about being at the lowest point is there's the only way out is up. So if you start doing the work, there is a way out, and the way out is up. It's a better life. It's a better life. Okay. But when you're at the recruit stage, that kind of stuff, it's hard to see. It's hard to see any way out. Okay. So the con though, a loss without support or processing produces bitterness instead of calibration. The recruit either grows from it or gets stuck in it. Okay. This is why it's also good to get in a group like Wolfpack, so that you can swap notes with other guys that have made it through it. Okay. That way you don't have to do it alone. Okay. Because doing any of this kind of stuff alone is very challenging. By the way, guys, I do have new episodes every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. If you didn't know, every Friday is Frame Friday, where we're working on mindset and how to improve ourselves that way. And so that's what we're talking about today. So let's talk about the next archetype, which is, and this is also, Timothy Dalton is later in Raith's book. Like I said, I took these out of order because I was like, okay, if Lazenby is the recruit, then the next logical phase would be the soldier. And Timothy Dalton in Raith's book is the soldier. Okay. And if you watch any of these Bond movies, like, drop a comment. Who's your favorite Bond right now? Let me know in the chat. Who's your favorite Bond? If you watch any of these movies, Connery had a little bit of a sense of humor. Roger Moore definitely had a sense of humor, right? Lazenby had a little bit of a sense of humor. But then when you got to Dalton played Bond very seriously, because he tried to be the literary version of Bond. If you read the old Ian Fleming novels, Timothy Dalton nailed it pretty good. I would say Dalton and Daniel Craig, which we'll get to. Daniel Craig and Dalton, I think, were the literary version of Bond. He was cold, calculating. He'd been through a lot of crap. You know what I mean? Like, he was hardened. Okay. And so that's how Timothy Dalton played it a little too stiff almost, right? So he's the soldier. So the first trait we have for the soldier is that he's duty driven. He operates because something larger than himself requires it, but not because he necessarily enjoys it. He knows he's got a job to do and needs to get done, but he doesn't like it, right? So the pro there is that he's got a deep sense of purpose, and men with missions are really hard to break. It's one of the reasons why we often, bang the drums in the space that you got to find a purpose. You got to find a reason for getting up in the morning. You got to find a reason to live that's outside of women. A lot of guys, though, they end up making their wives or their girlfriends their purpose or their mission. And when that goes away, they're completely crushed or ruined by it. So that's why we say, no, you got to have a mission outside this, because a guy with a mission is hard to break. Okay. But the con is that when the mission becomes the identity, losing the mission destroys the man. Okay. So there's the rub, right? You got to have a purpose or a mission in life. But if you have an attachment to the outcome, if you have an attachment to the purpose, if you have your whole identity wrapped up in this, if it doesn't work out, now you're crushed that didn't work out. Guys get zeroed out all the time because the careers that they were in ended, right? Guys that were spent 40 years working for a company get laid off. A lot of those guys will unalive themselves too. It's very similar to the recruit, losing someone, right? Trait number 2 is moral weight. He takes injustice personally. Betrayal lands hard. Loyalty matters to him more than results. So the pro here is it creates authentic commitment. The soldier doesn't half-ass things because he actually cares. He actually cares about what's happening. Okay. We have a brother in Wolfpack. He was fired up about something. I can't remember what. And so I was asking him I think we were talking about women and and we're talking about how the goofy bastards or whatever, look at them that way. It was one of those types of conversations in the chat. And he was really pissed about something. And I was like, man, you're too serious, man. You need to chill out sometimes a little bit, and live a little, have some fun. We were talking about, oh God, it was some kind of, it was the whole pineapple juice thing, right? When you drink pineapple juice, it's supposed to make your semen taste better for women or something like that. And he was like, there are no statistics. And he was getting very adamant about it. And I was like, dude, does it really matter if it works or not? Or does it matter more that you're getting the soul sucked out of your body? Come on, have some fun. Right. Well, he was like, look, I have an aversion to injustice and misinformation is what he said. So he's very serious about that. Okay. I would say moral weight is probably something that he probably would be a trait, a characteristic of my man in Wolfpack, which isn't a bad thing, right? There's a pro there, creates authentic commitment. The con, though, is caring too much means he can be manipulated through his principles. Someone who knows his code can exploit that code. Okay? Some food for thought there. Trait number 3, controlled intensity. His presence has pressure behind it. He doesn't smile often, but when he's focused on you, you feel it. So the pro there is it commands serious attention. In high stakes environments, people want the guy with gravity, not the one cracking jokes. So they wouldn't want me there because I turn everything into a fucking joke, which we'll get into there because this is one of the Bond archetypes. Now, the con is constant intensity without range makes people tense to be around. You don't want to be the guy everyone feels like they need to perform for, or they got to walk around eggshells, right, to be around you because they're afraid you're going to go off on them about whatever. Okay, you don't want to be that guy. Trait number 4, emotional compression. He doesn't explode and he doesn't open up. He compresses. So the pro for that is it looks controlled. It looks controlled, and in the short run, he holds everything together under fire, okay? But the con is compression builds pressure over time. It leaks out as irritability, impatience, and a short fuse in low-stakes situations that don't deserve it. This is where you see guys who have been building up resentment for a long time, and they've been like, I'm picking my battles, but then the straw breaks the camel's back, and they just blow up, right? I used to be that guy. I used to have a really bad temper. I would try to control it by suppressing it, really, right? Or compressing it. And but then so much would happen at once that I would lose my shit. I would absolutely just have a complete meltdown, throwing shit around, being pissed off and stuff like that. Right? That's something that I'm still working on today. If you ask Nurse Chick would think that I was pretty even keeled. I don't get upset easily. I don't get rattled easily. But I lost my shit the other day. I talked about on the podcast the other day. I lost the shit at one of my cats. It was the first time I think Nurse Chick ever heard anything out of me like that. I was flipping out over this fucking cat. Right. But after that, I was like, oh crap, because I've worked really hard for years now, not to be that guy anymore. And so when it comes out, I'm like, fuck, I can't believe I let that go. So I went to her and I said, hey, I'm sure you heard me out there. Like, I apologize. I probably should have done that, And I don't usually go around apologizing for things I don't need to apologize for. But that time I felt like it was justified, because I shouldn't have acted that way. But it was one of those things where I'm still working on it. None of us are perfect, and the work never stops, right? Trait 5, personal investment in the outcome. Whatever he's doing, he's in it. He doesn't phone in the effort. Okay. So the pro here is that it drives excellence. Men who are personally invested tend to outperform men who aren't invested at all. Right. But the con is over-identification with outcomes means failure really hits deeper than it should. The line between commitment and obsession gets thin pretty fast. Okay. So that's the con there. So let me ask you guys this. Be honest with me based on everything that we've covered. Do you think you've been, hold on a second. Nah, you know what? This question doesn't even make sense. Who's your favorite Bond? Just let me know in the chat. Let's go with there. Or do you guys see any of the traits in the recruit or the soldier in you? Just let me know that in the chat there. I have the same template for my show notes. And so the question that I have here is from Wednesday. So I didn't update the question this time. All right. The Predator. This is Sean Connery, the Predator, which is kind of interesting. I wonder, the way Raith describes the Predator is like a hunter, like a guy who's on the prowl for something. But if you ask women, right, Sean Connery's Bond, he was the guy that sort of forced himself on women, so they would call him a predator for a completely different reason. But that's not what Raith means here. So the Predator is Sean Connery. So let's look at the traits of the Predator. So trait number 1 is contained capability. The Predator doesn't broadcast what he could do. He walks in and people just know he could handle whatever happens. So the pro here is he commands respect without demanding it. Nobody tests a man who looks like he's already done violence and moved on without losing sleep, right? One might call this a dominant masculine presence, right? If you guys haven't read R.P. Thor's phenomenal book, treat yourself, okay? Because this is what part of the things that Thor teaches you how to be in that book. A guy who just walks in and like the record stop. People like turn to and they notice just because of your physical presence, and they don't want to mess with you because you look like a guy that if they messed with him, he would mess you up, right? But he doesn't also at the same time doesn't look like, like a bruiser, like a guy with like tattoos on his face. You don't have to be that guy, but you just have a presence about you that you look like a guy that can handle himself, right? So the con there is it can be read as unapproachable. If you're the guy nobody tests, you're also sometimes the guy nobody wants to talk to, right? They don't want to fuck with that guy. I don't want to fuck with them. You're too intimidating, right? Which is kind of funny. Because if you asked me, and probably most of you guys in the audience, just because of how I carry myself on the podcast, you probably wouldn't think that I was this guy. You would think, oh, Paul seems pretty approachable. And I would say I'm pretty approachable. But the other day I got one of the, to me, it was sort of a funny compliment and also almost a slight dig, but my daughter's boyfriend was staying at my house. This was, God, a couple years ago. Like now she's 21. She's doing whatever. I don't, she's an adult now. I can't tell her what to do anymore, but this was before she was even 18, I think. She was dating this boy, same boy. And so he came to visit because they had this long distance relationship. And I fully encourage your kids to be in long distance relationships because it's hard for them to get in trouble when the person lives in another state, right? It's hard for your daughters to get pregnant when the guy lives in another state. And so otherwise, as an adult, I'm like, long distance relationships are a stupid idea. Don't do it. But for teenagers, keeps them out of trouble. So she had this long distance relationship with this kid, and he came to visit. And I remember my daughter told me this because he would never say anything, but he goes, "Man, your dad is so intimidating until he talks to his cats." I thought that was funny as hell. Anyway, because I'm like, I don't think I'm that intimidating. But Nurse goes, "No, you can be intimidating sometimes." And I'm like, she's just madly in love with me. She's just dickmatized, guys. She don't know. Anyway. So you can be unapproachable. Trait number 2, economy of behavior. Less talking, less moving, less explaining. Every action is deliberate. Nothing is wasted. Okay. So the pro here is that actually creates gravity. When a man speaks rarely, people actually listen when he does. Whenever I talk about this type of trait, I like to bring up pro wrestling, and I like to bring up Jake the Snake Roberts because he was that guy. Jake the Snake Roberts was a guy who would purposefully talk really low. He would get down like this, and he would be very slow and deliberate in his delivery because it forced you to lean in a little bit, right? Now, Connery doesn't talk that low, but he is a little bit more deliberate in what he delivers. Now, the con is in modern relationships and workplaces, extreme economy can come across as disinterest or stonewalling, especially to people who communicate differently. Okay. That sounds like their problem. That doesn't sound like my problem. That's their problem. Trait number 3, emotional containment. The predator processes internally and shows nothing externally. He doesn't celebrate. He doesn't rage. He just handles it and moves forward. The pro is he's unshakable under pressure. When everyone else is reacting, he's the one people look for the next move. Look to for the next move. The con, though, is that over time, containment without any release creates distance, and people eventually stop trying to connect with the stone wall. Doing my one-on-one dead bedroom coaching, I talk about this on the podcast a lot. The guys that are able to turn their dead bedrooms around within 2 weeks are the guys who can have a little fun, guys that can be a little bit playful, guys that can handle shit tests with agree and amplify. And the reason why I say that is because week 2 is where I teach guys how to handle shit tests, and we walk through examples and stuff like that. And the guys that get really good at agree and amplify, they're able to take their wives' shit testing and turn it into playful banter. Playful banter turns to flirting very quickly. Flirting leads to sex. Okay. Those guys are able to turn things around quickly. The guys that are quick on their feet, they can do that sort of thing. The guys that usually struggle are the guys that are too fucking serious all the time. And guys that are too fucking serious all the time, they tend to be like this, right? Where they have economy of behavior. And so the con here is it comes across as disinterest or stonewalling or cold. Like you have no emotions. You're too stoic. Okay. When you're that guy, it's really hard to relate to people like that. Okay. If you put yourself in your wife's shoes, she's trying to have fun. She's trying to be goofy or whatever. And you're too fucking serious. One of the brothers in Wolfpack, he always talks about like how his wife does all this goofy shit. I fucking hate all her goofy shit. He gets so mad at her for doing this stuff. And I'm like, man, have some fun with her, man. Have some fun. It's like, she just wants to have fun with you. She's trying to have fun with you and you're shutting it down because you think it's goofy behavior. I was like, tell yourself a different story about it. Tell yourself, because a lot of our reactions to shit our wives and girlfriends do is because of the stories we tell ourselves, So you're constantly saying, oh, all this stuff is goofy woman shit. And instead of just going, she's just being playful and having fun. Like, why don't I have fun with her? Right. So the guys who have the economy of behavior they struggle with that a little bit. Emotional containment. The predator processes internally and shows nothing externally. He doesn't celebrate. Oh, did we talk about this? Let's see here. I talked about that a little bit, right? He's unshakable under pressure when everyone else is reacting. Yeah, we talked about that. Assuming desirability. He doesn't pitch himself or try to impress. He assumes the sale is already made. Pro, it's attractive by default. Trying to impress actively lowers value. Not trying communicates abundance, right? This is something that we teach in the dating market, right? Don't be qualifying yourself to these women. Let them qualify themselves to you. If you aren't trying to prove yourself all the time to these women, you actually stand apart because all these other simps are trying to prove themselves, trying to show like how great they are. We were showing one of the guys in the pack dropped a post from a guy who I guess he got dumped. He was on a date and he was 5'9", and I guess the chick was like 5'9" also. And when they went on a date, he spent over $100 on like trying to impress her with dinner or whatever. And then at the end of the day, after spending all that money, she said, look, I thought you would be taller. Your dating app says that you're 5'9". I don't think you're 5'9" or whatever. And so instead of turning that all into a big joke, because that kind of stuff is a shit test, guys. That kind of stuff's a shit test. Instead of doing all that, he pulls out his wallet and tries to prove to her that he's 5'9". Well, my driver's license, it's not my driver's license, bitch, right? Now you're qualifying. And now you're unattractive. Okay. He could have like, if she could have said something like, oh, I thought you would have been taller. And he could have been like, oh, don't worry about it. I'll climb you like a tree. Right. Oh, don't worry about it. We're all the same height lying down. There's all sorts of ways to handle that doesn't require qualifying to her. Okay. So if you're assuming desirability, you're going to have that kind of attitude when you're out on a date. You're going to assume that chicks like you. Okay. It's actually better to err on the side of assuming women like you than it is to assume they don't. Because if you assume women don't, you're never going to walk up and talk to these women, and you're always going to be nervous around them. But if you assume they all like you, you'll find that some won't, right? Some won't, but that's their problem, right? But you'll find that you'll be more confident when you're talking to these women, and confidence by itself is attractive. Okay. So assuming desirability, it's attractive by default, but the con is it can cross into arrogance without the actual competence behind it. Without the capability, this just looks like obvious narcissism, right? But still, if you want to take any of Royce's old advice, if you guys don't know who Royce is, he's one of the original 3 R's of the manosphere. Like, he always talks about error on the side of irrational confidence. Okay. It's always better to err on the side of confidence and irrational self-confidence than it is to be self-deprecating and being too humble. Okay. It's way more attractive to be confident. Okay. And then trait number 5, comfort with being misunderstood. He doesn't explain himself, justify his choices, or need everyone to get it. Pro is rare level of internal security. Most men need the room to agree. They need everyone to agree with them. The predator doesn't need anyone to agree with him. Okay. He doesn't explain himself. The con is the unwillingness to communicate can result in genuine misunderstandings that cause real damage in his closest relationships. Okay. So it's one of those things where, like, we often talk in the space, like, no deering, bro, no deering. Like, there's nuance to everything we talk about in the space. If you ever read the book Verbal Judo, they talk about explaining your position is actually an opportunity to get buy-in on what you're trying to do. Right now, Ryan Stone says, no, no. When someone wants you to explain something, it's an attack vector. So, I would say read the situation, okay, depending on what's going on. So, guys, if you are just joining us, we are talking about Raith Deantoir's book, Becoming the Operator, and it's all about James Bond and the different archetypes of James Bond. I'll drop a link to that in the chat. But if you didn't know, I have a new book coming out next month, and like James Bond, it'll teach you how to dick her down right.
Have you ever had sex and honestly wondered, did she actually enjoy that, or was she just going along with it? Because chances are she's had better. and she remembers it? What if I told you there's a way to make sure you're the one she can't stop thinking about? Most guys think good sex is about stamina or size. It's not. The men women are genuinely obsessed with aren't the biggest or the longest lasting. They're the ones who know exactly what they're doing. They're not fumbling around hoping something works. They walk in with a plan. They read her body. They control the whole experience from the first move to the last. And when it's over, she's not thinking about sleep. That's not some rare natural talent. That's a skill set, and it can be learned. Dick Her Down Right is the no-nonsense manual that breaks down exactly how women's bodies and minds work during sex, how to take charge of the experience like you actually know what you're doing, and how to become the man she's telling her friends about. Not the guy she had an okay time with, the guy she keeps coming back to, the guy she'd do almost anything to keep happy because what he does to her is in a category by itself. Every technique, every approach, every psychological principle is laid out straight. No theory, no filler, just the real information that makes the difference between average and unforgettable. Dick Her Down Right drops on Amazon and Audible this June. Any man who wants to be better in bed and have any woman he's with completely hooked on him needs this book. Get it in June.
Indeed. Let me hide this for a second there. Let's go through the chat. Brother Dale's in the house. He says shaken, not stirred. And if you guys follow Dale on X, he's got a pretty James Bond looking avatar, like he's in a tuxedo. And Steel Cyan says, good morning. Good to see you, brother. And Mike Steele's in the house. He says, what up, fam? Alex is in the house. He says, tip, with Notebook LM, you can create nice AI podcasts about any topic, including differentiating discussions. What's Notebook LM? I've heard of it, but I don't know anything about it. Brother John's in the house, says, morning, y'all. Dale says, here's one of my favorite Bond quotes from Never Say Never Again. Fatima Blush. Oh, how reckless of me. I've made you all wet. James Bond. Yes, but my martini is still dry. Oh, yeah. That was a good one. Happy Friday, gents. And Darford says, don't take any of this shit too serious. One of the best things I have learned in Wolfpack, it's a glorious thing. Right? Like, it's kind of fun to have fun, isn't it? I don't know. Pineapple does not belong on pizza. Pineapple on pizza doesn't work the same with your seminal fluid as just drinking straight pineapple juice and then eating pineapples. Yeah, studies show that doesn't exist. Okay. Alex says Bond is outcome independence, imperfection, and getting the job done. Actually, he's always mission focused, and it's always about completing the mission though. So I don't know if he's outcome independent. He's outcome independent with women for sure, but not with the mission. Not with the mission at all. He's always got to complete the mission. Bond always gets the job done. Erkin says, good day, folks. Just joined. Where is this list from? It's from Raith Deantoir's book, Becoming the Operator. I dropped a link. It's pinned in the chat there. We're going through all the archetypes of Bond, and then we're going to talk about how they all integrate later. It's going to be a long episode, so if you guys can't stay for the whole thing, just come back and watch the replay or listen on Spotify. I understand. Brother Dale sent $5,000 super chat. He says, how does Bond's masculine frame function as a form of psychological sovereignty? Stays on mission, not moved by female beauty, danger, social pressure. Well, we're sort of going through all that today, right? It depends on the actor and the archetype that they portrayed. They all handled that stuff slightly different. You know, if you really analyze it, the way Raith breaks it down, like the way they handle all that different stuff, they handled it slightly different. It's pretty fascinating. I'm going to give him this one.
I was just going to say it. This guy fucks. Am I right?
Oh, he definitely fucks. And then let's see here. Brother Dar says, I would rather be perceived as a cocky prick than an insecure beta. The cocky guys always win. I agree. And then he sent $5,000 super chat. Shame these whores have a SF, Red Pill, or Monster. Oh, sugar-free Red Bull or Monster on your board. Oh, sweet. Thanks, man. I could use a sugar-free Red Bull. The Red Bulls have less calories than the Monsters, so I'd like to go with those. But I'm going to give him this one because this is what he asked for.
Shame this horse.
Got to shame these whores. You know, I was talking to a Lena's Bar Fitness. She's the one that did that sound drop, and I need to get one from her that says "shame these simps" because she was talking about shaming the simps as well. Urkin says Paul's book ad could easily be the ad for Playboy TV. I thought, you know, when I got demonetized the other day playing that, and I was like, oh, is it the ad? Is the ad too spicy? But I don't think it's the ad. It was dropping an F-bomb, I think, before the 8-minute mark. You have very sharp eyes, Mr. Bond. Wait till you get to my teeth. Yeah. That's right. All right. So speaking of Bond, let's get into the next one here, which was the Bond when I was growing up. It was hold on, we're on Roger Moore now. The Diplomat. Roger Moore is the Diplomat. Roger Moore was Bond when I was a kid, when I was really young, when I first started watching James Bond. So I still like Roger Moore, even though as an adult, you know, like as a teenager, I liked Pierce Brosnan, right? Pierce Brosnan was the James Bond when I was in high school. He was in the early 2000s when I was in the Navy. Like Brosnan was my boy, but I still have a soft spot for Roger Moore. My favorite Roger Moore movie is Live and Let Die. Live and Let Die. His first outing as Bond was never topped. It was awesome. And then Moonraker was a shit show, but still it was a fun one. And then The Spy Who Loved Me had the best James Bond car ever, you know, with the Lotus Esprit. Anyway, the Diplomat, Roger Moore. The first trait of the Diplomat is tempo control through humor. Okay, so I think that I would identify a little bit more with the Diplomat because I like to crack jokes at inappropriate moments. I like to, you know, have a little bit of a comic relief even during serious problems and stuff like that. So tempo control through humor. He uses levity to manage the emotional temperature. If someone escalates, he cracks a line and suddenly nobody's sure how serious the situation really is. The pro is he diffuses tension without confrontation. Humor buys time, lowers defenses, and keeps options open. The con, if the humor is reflexive instead of strategic, it reads as avoidance, and other men tend to clock it immediately. Trait number 2, social perception. The Diplomat reads micro expressions, adjusts tone in real time, and calibrates constantly. The pro is he's highly effective in any environment that rewards influence over force, which is most of modern life, right? If you think about it, we're not constantly at war with each other. We're not constantly getting in fist fights anymore, unless, you know, we're not constantly shooting each other unless you live in Chicago, right? Like, you know, you can diffuse most situations with humor these days. The con is it requires high energy. Constant social calibration can be exhausting, and without real emotional grounding, it can burn men out. Look at Jim Carrey, right? Jim Carrey is a funny man. He's a comedian and stuff like that, but he ended up going into a really dark depression a couple of years ago because it was too much to hold up this mask that wasn't really him. And yeah, he ended up like cracking under the pressure because he didn't want to be the funny guy anymore. You know, it's kind of sad. Trait number 3 is likability as a tool. He makes people feel comfortable being around him, and that comfort creates loyalty. So the pro, influence that doesn't create resistance. People follow comfort. Fear gets compliance. Comfort gets buy-in. Okay. The con is likability without substance becomes just being the funny guy. Funny guys don't get promoted and they don't get respected the same way. It's kind of like the difference of being cocky funny, right? Like if you guys look at when it comes to dating or, you know, pickup artistry or whatever, David D'Angelo taught everybody to be cocky funny. you know? And so a lot of the cocky, funny stuff you get from Royce, from Corey Wayne, you know, like Dr. Robert Glover, like any of that cocky, funny type stuff, that all came from David D'Angelo, right? But then you can go too far that way and become a dancing monkey, which the MGTOW guys rail against. So I'm not going to be a dancing monkey for these chicks, right? So you don't want to be the dancing monkey, but being cocky funny is attractive. So there's a line there, okay? Trait number 5, easy under pressure. He moves at the same pace in a crisis that he does at a dinner party. The pro is stabilizing for everyone around him. The calmest person in the room sets the emotional ceiling. The con is ease that never modulates into seriousness, signals that nothing actually matters to him, which isn't attractive. It's completely empty. Okay. By the way, be like Dar Fitness and Brother Dale and send some super chats. Okay. That helps support the show more than anything else. So now we get into my boy, Pierce Brosnan. He was the executive. Raith described him as the executive. And all of his movies were good, except for Die Another Day had some cool cars in it, but the story was trash. And Madonna, for real, come on, it wasn't very good. And then, like, you know, laser beams from space, and yeah, the story wasn't very good. There were some cool gadgets and cars in it, though. And then Tomorrow Never Dies was okay, but it was, I don't know, like the storyline wasn't that great either in that one. I would say Goldeneye is my favorite Pierce Brosnan movie, and then The World Is Not Enough is probably my second favorite one. All right, this just got refreshed. Where are we at here? We're with the executive. Okay, so trait number 1, presentation mastery. He understands that how you carry yourself, speak, and dress communicates competence before you've done anything. So the pro is he gets taken seriously in high-level environments. First impressions matter, and he's always ready for any situation that he's in. The con is polish without depth is a house of cards. The moment real pressure hits, a man built entirely on image falls apart publicly. Okay. Trait number 2, strategic composure. He processes he processes stress internally and presents steadiness externally. So the pro is he inspires confidence in people who depend on him, and teams follow calm leaders. The con is when composure becomes chronic suppression, he loses touch with what he's actually feeling. That creates isolation and eventually blow-ups, which is very similar to which one was it? Was it The Recruit no, it was The Predator, right? There's all the suppression. Suppression can come out if you don't have a way of getting it out somehow. It needs to come out somehow. Trait number 3, versatility across domains. He can move between negotiation, social interaction, physical threat, and intimacy without looking out of place in any of them. So the pro is unpredictable and capable in ways that make him genuinely formidable. The con is trying to be polished in every domain can produce a man who seems smooth everywhere, but deep nowhere, right? He's all looks. He's all looks, no substance. And then trait number 4, status awareness. He understands hierarchies, reads who has power, and positions himself accordingly. The pro is politically effective. He doesn't waste energy fighting battles that don't matter. Over-resilience on status means status is stripped away, whether by job loss, divorce, or public failure, identity. Public failure, identity collapses alongside it. And then trait 5, delegation and systems thinking. He doesn't fight every battle personally. He builds systems and coordinates people. So the pro is he scales his capability beyond what any one man can do alone. But the con is delegation requires trust, and trust requires openness. An executive who can't be vulnerable with his inner circle eventually runs everything alone, which breaks him. Now, that's one thing that Raith talks about in this book quite a bit, is using vulnerability to build trust with people and stuff like that. And you guys all know me. If you guys tune into my podcast, I am not a big proponent of being vulnerable with people. I'm not. not a big proponent of that. By the way, guys, if you want to swap notes with other guys about topics like this, on working on your mental frame, on working on problems in your life, stuff like that, it's time to join the Wolf Pack and run with the wolves, brother. There it is.
Bear Club?
Not anymore.
Wolf Pack, you fix what's broken. You lead like a man again. No pity, no therapy. Just fire, just frame. Cold bed, broken home, midlife drift, feeling alone. You don't need hacks, blogs, lies. You need men with fire in their eyes. We rebuild from the ground up. No excuses, no soft stuff. Telegram lit 24/7. Brothers locked in steel, not heaven. Step inside the pack. We don't fall, we attack. Truth, fire, presence, we bring it back. Masculine pride, no time to slack. Step inside the pack. Drop your past, claim your track. No therapy talk, no playing small. We sharpen blades, we take it all.
For the love of God, too sweet me. Urkin says David D'Angelo is a nerd. You know, having been in the red pill space for a number of years now, most guys in the red pill space are fucking nerds. Like, that's why else are we studying all this shit? Nerds study stuff, right? Jocks don't study shit. And then Mike Steele says a lot of Wolfpack guys are nerds too. It's true. It's true. Tomorrow never dies. Billionaires causing global strife so that mass mainstream media can profit from the chaos. What a ridiculous premise. Isn't it so apropos for like what's happening though in modern world? It really is. You know what's really cool about Tomorrow Never Dies is there's that stealth boat, right? The stealth boat that causes all that stuff. It's in the middle, causes the war. If you guys haven't seen that movie, go check it out. I might actually fucking watch it tonight. The thing is, that movie came out, and not long after I was in the Navy. Or when did it? Jeez, now I gotta look. When did Tomorrow Never Dies come out? 90. Oh yeah, okay. So I was a senior in high school that year, and I graduated that year. Okay, that makes sense. So Tomorrow Never Dies came out right before I joined the Navy. I joined the Navy in '98, and then I remember the first time I saw an actual stealth boat, and it looks very similar to the one in the movie. I was like, they really exist. This is fucking amazing. I thought it was the coolest thing I ever saw in my life. Okay. Let's finish this up. We've got 10 things to go through, and we're already at an hour. So everything that we've talked about so far, the 5 archetypes of the different bonds, but they're like, well, we're missing an actor. Well, that's because Daniel Craig is what Raith describes as the operator, right? The operator is the guy that incorporates all of the 5 bond traits, right? You know how I said that Daniel Craig's bond and Timothy Dalton's bond are probably the closest version to the literary bond, like the actual bond in the books. Because Bond can be very serious in the books. He's a grizzled vet. He's a fucking commander in the military. He's not a young buck. There's no young commanders in the Navy. Okay. He was in the Royal Navy. He was a commander. He's not a young buck. Okay. He's seen some shit. And so, yeah, he's going to be a little bit grizzled. Okay. But the operator incorporates all 5 of the other traits. So he has all the pros of all these other traits, and he integrates them all to become the best version of himself, right? So let's go through some of these traits. So 10 ways to integrate all 5 archetypes and become the operator. The first one is train your body like the predator, present yourself like the executive. So physical capability is the foundation. Without it, composure is fragile and confidence is borrowed. Hit the gym, not to look good, but to build the physiological base that makes everything else possible. Then pair that capability with intentional presentation, because the operator looks like he belongs everywhere he goes. Okay. So hit the gym, go to the gym. 2, know when to use humor and when to put it down. Okay. The diplomat's humor is one of the most effective tools in social situations, but it has to be a tool you pick up consciously, not a reflex that you can't turn off. Practice reading when lightness serves the room and when seriousness is required. The man who can do both is unpredictable, but in the best way possible. 3, carry mission without becoming your mission. So the soldier's sense of duty is powerful, but the operator separates what he does from who he is. Your job, your relationship, your goals, these are things you're engaged in, but they're not who you are. They're not your identity. When one ends or fails, the man underneath doesn't crumble because there's actually a man underneath. Okay. Look at, which Bond movie was it where he got shot and he like disappeared for whatever was that? It wasn't Quantum of Solace. It was, I can't remember which one it was, but right. Like Bond, basically he got shot and he went into hiding for a while, you know? And then the last Bond movie, he was retired for a while, right? Like he's still Bond. He's still Bond without the mission. Okay. Let the recruit phase teach you instead of embarrass you. Okay. Every man who's now worth something went through a stage where he tried too hard and got it wrong. The operator looks back at that version without contempt. He extracts the lessons, respects the hunger that drove the effort, and stops needing that phase to have been different than it was. Right. I used to tell this story to when I was working in IT and I was managing people. If a guy like really royally fucked something up, as long as we were able to fix it, I was never mad about it. Never mad about it, you know? And these guys would be like, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry." And I'd be like, "Look, when I was a junior sysadmin, I one time brought down an entire company for almost 48 hours, right? Because I decided I was going to just implement something without doing change control. You know, it was something I learned in college. I thought this was going to be good for the company. And I completely brought down the entire network infrastructure across the country for this company. It was the worst day of my life. They called it Black Wednesday, I think, for years until I left. They probably still call it that. You know, it was really bad. It was really bad, but I learned from it. I learned like what not to do. I learned, you can't just fucking make changes in production and shit. You know, it was a hard lesson to learn. And I'm glad they didn't fire me over it. You know what I mean? So I can look back on that and go, oh, I wish I would have done something different, but it taught me a valuable lesson, you know? So look at past mistakes like they were lessons that you learn from and own that shit. Just own it, right? And then build emotional range, not emotional suppression. The Predator contains everything, which is admirable under fire, but limiting over a lifetime. The Operator can feel anger without acting on it, express depth without losing footing, and be genuinely warm without needing approval. Range is the goal. Suppression is just a delayed reaction. All right. By the way, guys, follow me on social media. The links are in the description. All right. And then the last 5 ways that we can become the Operator and integrate all these other archetypes. Use presentation as a tool, not as an identity. So I told the guys at Wolfpack, I go, hey, tomorrow's episode is going to be a good one. I got a PowerPoint, and like, one of the brothers in there who's former military. He's like, really, Paul, former military, death by PowerPoint? Come on, bro. I was like, oh, PowerPoint's, it's very serious. I need to have a visual aid for this shit. Talk about it. So presentation as a tool, not as an identity. Brosnan's Bod taught us that polish matters, but the operation doesn't become the suit. Your reputation, your image, your social positioning, these are all things you manage. They are not things you serve. When you can drop the performance in private and still like who you are, that's the sign the foundation is solid. Number 7 is build competence privately and let it show naturally. The operator doesn't announce progress. He trains, he learns, he develops, and people eventually just notice. This is where the predator's quietness and the recruit's hunger combine properly. The hunger drives the work. The restraint prevents you from making the work your whole personality before it's even done. Number 8 is practice delayed response until it becomes your default. Reactors respond immediately. One of the most practical ways to build operator presence is to pause before you speak in high stakes moments. Not long, just a breath. That pause creates space between the stimulus and the response. And that space is where choice lives. Over time, it rewires how your nervous system handles pressure. I talk about it a lot in my books and on the podcast as the 3-second rule, right? If like your wife or your girlfriend says something and your initial gut response is to blast her, well, then take 3 seconds before you respond. Okay. That way you're not reacting from emotion. You could actually respond with some of the tools that we talk about in the podcast or in my books, right? You could respond with fogging, negative assertion, agree and amplify, anything like that. Okay. If you take 3 seconds and then respond, you'll be much better. Enforce boundaries without theater. The soldier enforces because he cares. The diplomat would rather redirect. The executive might suppress conflict to maintain image. The operator takes the best of all three. He states his limits plainly, holds eye contact, doesn't over-explain, and doesn't make the enforcement into a production. Calm enforcement done consistently is far more powerful than any dramatic confrontation. And then the last one is measure yourself by alignment, not by applause. The operator has one internal question he comes back to regularly. Do my actions line up with my values? Not, did people approve of me today? Not, did she seem impressed? Not, did my boss notice? Just, am I being who I said I was going to be? That question, asked honestly and answered without ego, is the maintenance protocol for everything else. All right. I hope you guys enjoyed my breakdown of this, but if you guys really want to get the full breakdown, grab the book, Becoming the Operator. It's available on Amazon by Raith. It's on Kindle, paperback. I don't know if it's on hardcover. It's definitely not available as an audiobook. He asked me to read it. And if I'm going to sit down and read, it's going to take me months to read it. And so I downloaded the PDF. He gave me a free copy of the PDF, and I found a PDF reader and listened to it. And it's only about 2 hours long. And the PDF reader that I had just sounded like a robot. It was awful to sit through. But it's funny because I'm reading one of his other books. I'm actually sitting down to read his book on visualization, and that book is great. It's wonderful. And it's written in the same format. It's written very similarly. It's just when you're listening to a robot read the stuff, it just runs all together. There's no tone. It's all very just, it's all monotone. I don't recommend it. So grab the paperback and actually take the time to read it if it takes you a long time. I'll drop a link in the chat for you guys to check that out. But that's all I got for today. Let's take a look at the chat here. Urka says, well, you are right, Mike. As a consumer of red pill content, I am also kind of a nerd. Skyfall. Yes, Skyfall. Thank you very much. Urkin says the Bond movies are kind of feminist and even simp. The entire intelligence agency is run by an old, short, angry lady. I know that was the biggest slap in the face when Pierce Brosnan took over, right? Because Judi Dench took over and she called him a feminist dinosaur, a sexist, misogynist, feminist, or sexist, misogynist dinosaur that, is a relic of the Cold War, right? That's what she called him. And so it was like, yeah, they completely turned everything into feminism. That's because Cubby Broccoli died and his daughter took over, right? So it became feminist nonsense after that. But there's still some good masculine shit in it. Like Bond was still a womanizer at the end of the day, and that's all that really matters, I'm curious to see what Amazon does with it now that they own the rights to it. You know, I wonder if they're going, I think they're going to turn it into a TV series, and a lot of their TV series have been good. So hopefully don't fuck it up. And I am glad Judi Dench is retired from the Bond movies. Yeah, well, you know, she's old as shit. She's going to die soon. Slides are good and helpful. It is good to see what we listen, easier to keep them in mind. Indeed. Well, especially for you guys that tune into the YouTube version, or if you guys do watch, like, tune in on Spotify, you guys watch the video version of it, because the video version is available on Spotify. But most people actually just listen to the podcast, so they're not even going to see the PowerPoint presentation. If you guys want to see my badass it wasn't a badass PowerPoint presentation. It's very simple. I learned years ago, simple is the best for PowerPoints, you know, and then don't put everything that you're going to say in the PowerPoint on the PowerPoint itself. It's there for a visual aid. It's not there as a script reading tool. Just, if any of you guys out there want to put presentations together, don't put everything that you're going to say on the slides itself. Have those on note cards or somewhere else. Okay. All right, guys, that's all I got for the podcast today. Tune in to the podcast on Monday. We are on chapter 6 in my Keep Your Bitch series. Chapter 6 is all about understanding and managing female nature. And if you're going to set the tone and lead your relationship effectively, you need to understand how she's wired in order to do that. And that's what chapter 6 is all about. So definitely tune into that. Otherwise, like, subscribe, hit those notifications, guys. I do have new episodes every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Other than that, where are we at here? Have a good weekend.
This has been the Come On Man podcast. Now, go out and get it.